Hello and welcome to this Noble Science of Defence training video. In this video we're going to look at distances. We have four distances which are open, burst distance, engaged distance and close distance. The manner in which we utilise our weapon during these distances will change, and this is a good way to get your fencing working very well for you, is to make sure that you are able to understand the distances and switch your fight according to where you actually are. So the first distance is open, which is roundabouts where Michael and myself are currently positioned. So what luck. From this distance, Michael is absolutely no threat to me whatsoever. It's going to take him a while to get to me, so I don't need to worry about him. When we are at this distance, I don't need to have my weapon in front of me, making sure that my opponent can't reach me. So I might use what we call an open ward here. I might simply use a ward where I just really don't need to worry. I have my sword kind of wherever I like, really. Because my opponent's going to take so long to get to me that I can put my weapon in the way when they become a threat. It's not too much of a bother for the open distance. The next distance we call first distance. This is the distance that we consider that the opponent is first a genuine threat to my safety. And that is when they must take two actions before they can reach my body. So the first distance is the first distance at which my opponent is a genuine threat. They have to make two actions to reach me. I make one step, I still cannot reach my opponent. When I make my second step, now I can reach my opponent. Now this may not seem like they are a threat, but as soon as they make one action, I now have to consider that their next action will cut me. So if I allow my opponent to get to this distance, where one action can strike me, then I need to be very, very conscious of every single action they take. And as soon as they take an action, I have to defend it. I cannot act freely myself. When I force my opponent to make two actions, upon their first action, they don't need to panic. They still can't reach me. But I can use this to find out the information that they have just given me. So in that instance, Michael told me that he was going to attack on my inside. Here he has made a ward, but he hasn't made a very good one. So if he continues to attack me, I'm fairly confident that I can take a position against him as he comes in. So as you come in, I can now make a counter strike against him with very little action myself, having not had to panic because he gave me all the information I needed at that point. So again, from this first distance, if Michael does the same, but with a good ward, then Michael steps and now he is covered. So in this instance, if Michael continues his attack, I don't feel like I can counter strike it. So if Michael continues his attack now, I will step and I will make a parry. Because I was aware that I was going to step and make a parry, I will now be safe to make a counter strike from that as I leave. If I allow Michael from this position, this distance where we are engaged, to make that strike, then I must parry and leave. I have no option other than to leave at that point because I have not been allowed the time to make a plan. So my first distance forces two actions on my opponent and allows me to make a plan on my opponent's actions. First distance, my opponent takes one action. Not a very good ward, jolly good. He comes in for his second action. I've decided I'll make a counter. Another option, my opponent takes one action and I steal the second action off of him before he has the opportunity. So I counter him before he's even prepared to make his strike. The third option is simply, he makes his first action. I know what his plan is. He comes in again. I make my defense and then I leave, or I make a counter strike from there. So that is the first distance where my opponent is a threat. Next, we have the engaged distance. This is where our blades are engaged on the weak of the blade. This is where most of your important fighting is going to be done, and this is where your 8 pressures comes in. This is where you need to be most safe. But we call this a guardant distance. The idea being guardant, meaning guarded. Whatever action happens, I must be strongly guarded at all times from this distance. Cannot allow my guard to slip at all. So from this distance in which we are engaged, this is where I push my opponent's weapon offline, or I make strong to weak and make an attack, or I beat, or I reach in and try and engage my opponent's weapon with my hand, or with my dagger or buckler will be much safer. I don't have to lean in as far. If we are in guardant, this is where a short turn is going to engage us in the weak. I don't really want this in a guardant position, but it's possible. But this is also where I'm going to begin reacting to the pressures that my opponent gives. Now we call it the engaged distance because I do not want to not be engaged with my opponent at this distance because of this. Sorry, straight on the knuckles. One action and they can strike me. So again, I have to be concerned with every action they make. So rather than making that a visual response, I touch my opponent's blade. I then react through the feeling of my blade. So when I engage my opponent's blade, whatever action they take, I can use the feeling through my blade rather than my vision. If I'm here engaged on my opponent's blade and he takes it away, I can feel that it's gone, but I can feel which way it went. Yeah, so again, here, he's going that way, I just follow him in this space. But now he's opened. So now he's giving me the true place, the time of the hand. Time of the hand and the body for the astute view on that one. Ideally, at this point, rather than just engaging my opponent, because then I might allow him to do what he wants to do, just push him offline as well. Now he does what I'm telling him to do. So as soon as my opponent moves from first distance into engaged distance, I engage their weapon and I move it away. If my opponent engages strongly on my weapon from first to engaged, then I can act on that immediately and close the distance, extend the distance, or do whatever it is that I feel is the safest thing to do. The final distance that we have is close distance. And this is when our swords are crossed at what Silver calls the half sword, halfway down my blade, what we call the pivot point. From a forehand ward, forehand to guardant, forehand to forehand inside, double bastard guardant, irrelevant. If I am crossed at the half sword, or if I'm close enough to cross here, this is close distance. This distance is deadly on every single action that is made. From this position, and we're just going to use Michael to do the things wrong. If Michael makes the tiniest action wrong, with no moving at all, I just follow with my blade and it's going to strike him. If I change my position ever so slightly, I can create openings that you see Michael panics about. Same on the inside. We're engaged here. I can go here and make a strike into him. I can go here and make a strike to him. If I can get his weapon far enough offline, this is where I have the true place. I can simply disengage and strike him without any concern for my own safety. I can strike him in the time of the hand. I can simply disengage and strike him, and he will not have the time to respond to that attack before my attack lands. So these are your 4 distances. Open. As you can see, no threat to me whatsoever. He's all the way over there. First distance. This is where I bring up a guard. My opponent has 2 actions and they will be taking my life away. So I'm now going to be very, very cautious. Then an action is made and we are engaged. So now I can use my guardance, I can use my 8 pressures, and I can try and figure out the safest way to go from here. And then, presuming that my opponent manages to get another action off, boom, but I defend. Now we are at close distance, and now we have to be very, very careful because any action that is mistaken will lead to your doom. Cool. So just a quick look at the 4 distances that we use. Thank you very much. Hopefully you can have fun training those, and we'll see you in class.